All right, so my name's Georgine Yorgi. I'm going to talk a little bit about digital extension and our digital extension efforts. So digital was envisioned as a way to sort of cover the breadth of a fairly large reach region, also address some diverse stakeholder audiences, and provide information on demand when stakeholders wanted it. And I'm going to talk about two strategies today, webinars and video. So first, webinars. In the fall and early winter, we produced 3 webinars in a series on Pacific Northwest agriculture and climate change. These webinars were aimed at an audience who wanted fairly technical information, so specifically university-affiliated extension, folks at government agencies, and then people working with nonprofits, mostly on climate change issues. And we looked at 2 sort of metrics to evaluate the success of that strategy: viewership information and then information around learning objectives. So viewership information, I would say we were more successful than we anticipated. This shows in the bars the number of people who watched the webinars live, and then they were recorded and were available on our website. And so the lines show the additional numbers of people who watched those webinars afterwards. So we have 950 views plus minus in total. And then also the other interesting thing is these webinars are continuing to be used even several months after they were produced. This data is as of the 1st of February. In terms of viewership and their affiliation, we are reaching our target audiences very well on the university-affiliated side, somewhat on the government agency side, a little bit less than we expected on nonprofits, although I'd point out that this is the affiliation of live viewers. We aren't yet able to capture the affiliation of people watching those asynchronous recorded versions, and we're working on that, and it'll be interesting to see if the distribution is the same there. Then for learning objectives, each of those webinars had 3 to 4 learning objectives, and basically we asked people to self-evaluate their own knowledge around those objectives before watching the webinar and after watching the webinar. This data is averaged over all of the objectives for each webinar, and you see the percentage of people expressing moderate or considerable knowledge before and after the webinar. And so you can see we have some significant learning, at least according to the viewers themselves. Based on those successes, we are planning 3 additional webinars in this series, one on pests and climate change impacts in the region, one on nitrogen management, and one on carbon and nitrogen amendments. Then switching gears to talk a little bit about video. So when we think about video, we're thinking about it being particularly suited for telling visual stories. So things like personal stories of producers implementing a particular management strategy. How does instrumentation that's used for the research work? How does equipment work? Things like that. And our initial foray into this was that we had the opportunity to collaborate with the Northwest Biocarbon Initiative on a professionally produced video telling the story of John Ashelman and his no-till management. And I think coming out of that experience, we asked the question, well, okay, if video is going to be part of our digital strategy, can we do something a little less professional maybe, but a little more cost effective so that we can use it a little bit more? And the dilemma there is really about partially the size of the reach region and the way that things are also distributed in time. So how can we capture video of those things we want to show? And so Sylvia Cantor, who's sitting at the projector now, has been piloting a sort of crowdsourced video process. And basically, she collaborates with people in the field, so whether that's researchers, students, or producers, to take video. It's really easy using a smartphone or a digital camera, so low tech. And then she works with them to write a script, and she edits and produces the final video. And then I'm going to let you watch one that she did with Shelley Presley. But before I do that, I'm just going to also say she is actively looking for new topics to work on in the coming year. So if you have ideas for videos you would use if they existed, or videos that you think particular stakeholders would find useful, please talk to her. Also, if you're willing to be a video capturer.
REACCH is a multi-institutional research project to improve climate change adaptation and mitigation strategies for cereal-based cropping systems in the inland Pacific Northwest. One objective of REACCH is to understand how different weather conditions and different management practices impact greenhouse gas emissions in cereal crops such as wheat or barley. By measuring greenhouse gas exchanges in different field conditions, researchers can better understand these differences, and they can collect baseline data that can be used to analyze how different management practices might impact future greenhouse gas emissions. The most direct and accurate way to measure carbon uptake and nitrogen loss between the atmosphere and agricultural land at the field level is using the Eddy covariance flux method. This diagram illustrates how updrafts and downdrafts at the surface of the Earth are the result of turbulent eddies in the air. Using Eddy covariance flux towers to measure the changing speeds of updrafts and downdrafts, scientists can calculate the net release and uptake of gases such as CO2. On the Eddy flux tower, the sonic anemometer measures three-dimensional wind speeds by shooting ultrasonic sound waves back and forth, while an infrared gas analyzer uses an infrared light source to measure carbon dioxide and water vapor concentrations. Each of these instruments takes 10 measurements per second. The instrumentation also includes GPS as well as a cellular modem which transfers data back to the WSU Atmospheric Research Lab on a daily basis. And by placing Eddy flux towers at sites across the study region, scientists hope to better understand how meteorology and management practices impact greenhouse gas emissions.